The request for today was to show how to make different shapes or create some of your own patterns. So I'm going to start with a really easy one. So let's go Design Sew Quilt, Start New, and I didn't have a work in progress, so that's why it didn't ask me if I wanted to erase. We always have to have a block to put something into, so I could say add block pattern, just a block pattern and enter or mark on the quilt, or I can add a pattern from my block library. I'm going to do that. So here's my enter rectangle manually and the others that I could have used if I was on the machine. I'm going to load from the block catalog. Now, unless you have created some of your own, you probably only have geometric and recycle bin. I'm going to click on geometric, and I'm going to have more blocks than what you do because I've added some. I'm going to go to my hexagon, so I clicked on the H to get there. I'm going to select it, say continue, and now my block is on the screen, and I'm going to say finished. Now, I actually want to turn this into a pattern. So anything that we already have as a block, we can turn to a pattern. And it's just, as long as you didn't leave where we were, it's add, edit, block to pattern. But if you had clicked finished, then just go back to add, edit, block. And then we have the option again, block to pattern. I'm going to click on that. And it asks me to select what block I want to convert. I only have one, so I'm going to click on it and say continue, and that is now a pattern. And I'm going to say finished. Now, if I want to save this to my geometric catalog, which is what the request was, I'm going to say save quilt pattern, save a pattern from the quilt, and then it wants you to tell it which pattern, so I'm going to click on my hexagon, say continue, and then you're going to type in the name. In this case, it already had the name hexagon from the block library, so I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to say enter, and then I would go down to my geometric catalog and select, and I already have one, so it's asking me if I want to overwrite it. I'm not going to. Well, yeah, let me do it. Just say yes. It doesn't look like anything happened. It just flashes. But if you now go look in your geometric library, it will be there. So we'd have to have a block to add anything. So we're going to add a block, standard block, enter rectangle manually. I'm good with the 10 inches. Say continue. And then just to show you that it's there, say finished. Finished. Add edit pattern. I'm going to go ahead and delete the hexagon off my screen. Continue so it's not messing things up. I'm going to say add pattern, block pattern, and I'm going to use the current block. I'm going to scroll down to geometric, and again I'll have extra because I've made things already. I'm going to go H to get down to the hexagon, and there's the pattern that I just made and put in there. Continue, and there it is. So now it's in my geometric catalog to use anytime. If you think back to your high school geometry class, hopefully you'll remember that a circle is 360 degrees, so it goes all the way around. A square, if you add up the angles, also adds up to 360 degrees, while a triangle adds up to 180 degrees because it's basically half of a square. So if we will remember that when we want to make geometric shapes, we just have to take our 360 or 180 and divide it by the number of sides. So a triangle is always going to be by 3, although we can have different numbers to come up to our 180 in that case. But we're going to start with other shapes. So I'm going to say Design Sew Quilt, Start New. I'm going to put in a block pattern, so I'm going to enter a rectangle manually. Doesn't really make any difference at this point what size our square is, so I'm going to just leave it at 10, continue, and finished. So geometric catalog was the last one I used, so that's what's going to pop up automatically. If it doesn't for you, scroll until you find it. So I'm going to go into the geometric catalog, and I want my line pattern. So I'm going to just click on my L. You can scroll through if you want to get there. And I'm going to choose the line pattern and say continue. Now it comes in what it thinks is the best fit for the block. When I'm using lines to build a shape, I actually like to start with it straight across a horizontal line. So I'm going to go down to rotation and click on that. Click on the keypad, say 0 and enter, and it's going to take it back to that horizontal position. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to move it. So you have to turn the zoom back off, click on move, and drag it down off the block just so it's easier to see. You can do it on top of the block. It just starts getting confusing with all those lines. And I'm finished with that. I'm going to make a pentagon, so that's my goal here. Say finished. Do I want to add another block? No. I want to copy a pattern. I'm just going to copy my line rather than going out and getting it every time. I'm going to click on the line, say continue. Now, I want to make a pentagon, so it's 360 divided by 5. So I'm going to click on my rotation, and 360 divided by 5 was 72. So if you, on the degree key here, if you click on that, you'll see that there is a 72. So I'm going to go to 72, and I can use either one of the rotate buttons. Just going to use, I did the one to the left, and then I'm going to say move. And if I click on the little square there and drag it down to another square, it'll snap into place. Okay, so now I have two sides of my pentagon. I'm going to say finished. I need to copy the patterns again. I'm going to do 2 at a time now and say continue. Again, I'm going to say rotation. I want to go whichever button I click, I want to click it twice. So I'm going to rotate 72 degrees twice, and I did twice because I have 2 sides of my pentagon. I'm going to click on move. Let's see how it's getting up here in the square. I'm going to get to my endpoint that I want to connect to the endpoint on the base and drag it there, and it'll snap there when you get close. I'm going to say finished. I'm going to copy another pattern. This time I'm going to copy just one side, so I'm going to click on that, say continue. I'm going to go rotation, 72 still. I'm going to turn to the right in this case, whichever way you need to go to get your last side. Say move. I'm going to click on that end point again and make it snap into place, and it snapped into place down there too. And I'm going to say finished. Now, right now it's just 5 lines, but I want to combine it so it's a closed shape. So I'm going to say combine patterns. And in this case, all of my start and end points are alternating, so pick a spot to start. I'll just start up here on the top. Say continue. Then we need to click the next one that's connected to it. Now, if I had clicked this side, it is connected to it, but notice I get a jump stitch. I don't want that. I want the side where I don't get the jump stitch. So this one to this one, continue. To the bottom, continue. To the left side, continue. And to the upper left, continue. And I'm finished. So now I have my pentagon. So I'm going to say finished again, and now I'm going to save that to a pattern or a quilt. It's just the pattern in this case. So I click Save Quilt Pattern. Save a pattern from the quilt. I'm going to click on the pentagon, continue. Now it's using the name that it started with. It was a line that we were using, so I'm going to click Clear to clean the whole thing out, and I'm going to type in pentagon. And hope I'm spelling it right. Enter. And then I'm going to go down to my geometric catalog again. Or you can create a new catalog if you want to. If you didn't want to put it in your geometric catalog, you would go all the way to the top of the list of the catalogs, click on New Catalog, give it a name, and then put it in there. I'm going to put it in my geometric, select. And again, it doesn't look like anything happened, but it really went there. You can go check if you want to. Now, a pentagon could be a block shape too. So I'm going to save it as a block as well. To do that, I'm going to click on Add Edit Block. I'm going to say Pattern to Block. I'm going to click on my pentagon and continue. And then I'm going to say Finish. So now this is a block. It won't stitch out. You can put things in it. I'm going to go down to Save Quilt Pattern. We're going to save a block from the quilt. Now we do have 2 blocks on the screen because that square is still there. But I want the pentagon, so click anywhere on the pentagon, say Continue, and I'm going to name it again. We're going to go Clear. It's exactly the same way as if you were naming a pattern. And enter. Now again, I can put it in my geometric catalog, but if you want to keep a catalog separate of blocks that you made, you can click on New Catalog. Let's just do that, just so I can show you how. I would probably put it in my geometric, but I think I already have it there. So I'm going to say New Catalog. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Sonia Space Blocks. You do not have to use upper and lower case. That's just a thing that I like to do. And enter. And now it's there. You don't see that it is, but if I say Add Edit Block, Add Block, Standard Block, Load from Block Catalog, here's my blocks, and there it is. I can click on it and continue, and it loads it onto my screen. So that's that. Finished, and I'm going to go back out to the main menu. There was a request for an octagon. It's really the same process as the pentagon. It's just more sides. So from the main menu, I'm going to say Design Sew Quilt, Start New, and yeah, I want to replace, and yes, I want to erase it. And I don't care whether I reset or continue. I always need a block pattern to be able to put, a block to be able to put a pattern on it. So I'm going to block pattern, enter rectangle manually. 10 inches is fine, continue, finished. I'm going to go to my geometric catalog, and since it's the last one I used, that's the one that pops up. I want the line pattern, so I'm going to select that, continue. And like I said with the pentagon, I like to start with my line at 0 degrees so that I control how it's turned. So I'm going to say 0, enter, and that puts it back. This is how it was digitized. If you noticed in the catalog, it was a horizontal line, so it's taking it back to what it was originally. I'm going to actually just go ahead and delete that block pattern so it's out of the way. So I'm going to go out to the Design Sew Quilt, add edit block, delete block, this one, continue. Yes. As long as I'm not adding patterns from a catalog, it doesn't matter whether there's a block on the screen. So I'm going to say finished, add edit pattern. I'm going to copy the pattern. I just want to copy my line pattern. Let me just zoom out so you can see more of this. Continue. Now, an octagon has 8 sides. If you divide 360 by 8, you get 45. So I need to rotate this 45. And I can just use this button again because I know there's a 45 on here. So I'm going to click through until I get to 45. And you can rotate either direction. Whichever direction you choose, you probably just want to keep doing that one. So I rotated to the left. I'm going to say move, grab an endpoint, and drag it up so it snaps to the square or the endpoint on the base. Let me zoom out a little more so we can see the whole thing. Okay. So now I'm going to say finished. I'm going to copy patterns again, and rather than doing it one at a time, I like to save a little time, so I'm going to copy both of them. Say continue, say rotate. I'm going to the left twice because there's 2 sides. Say move, grab, click on that square and drag it up to the square I want it to attach to, and it will snap together. Finished. I'm going to copy patterns, and this time I can copy all 8 of them. And I can do rotate if I want to, but I could also do flip Y and flip X, and that gets me there. And then I'm going to say move, it's already on move, flip Y and flip X, don't change anything. Grab that point and drag it into place. Now what it might do sometimes is mess up my order for the stitching. We'll see. Say finished, so now I have my octagon. And I'm going to combine patterns. I'm just going to start in the upper. It looks like it didn't mess anything up. They're all alternating my start and end points. I'm going to just start in my upper right hand corner. You can do whatever you want and say continue. And then I'm going to click the one that's connected to it. Now, if I wanted to go counterclockwise around, I could choose that, and what I would have to do is swap my start and end points, and that still doesn't work, so don't do that. Sometimes you can swap start and end points and get it to work, but sometimes it will just show a jump stitch going across where your stitching line is. So in this case, I don't want this one. I want this one. Continue, 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 and continue. Once they've all turned green, then I'm finished, and I have my octagon. So now I'm going to save it as a pattern into one of my catalogs or as a block, which I've already shown you, so I'm not going to keep doing that over and over on here. I'm just going to say finished. So there's my octagon. Let's play with a triangle now. I'm going to design sew quilt, start new. Yes, I'm going to replace, and yes, I'm going to erase. I need a block, so I'm going to enter the rectangle manually. 10 inches is fine, continue, and finished. So what if I wanted a right-angled block? So that would be one that has 90 degrees on one side and 45 on the other two. I can start with the angle pattern in my geometrics. I'm going to just click on that, continue, and let's see what happens if I put it at 0. That's the way it was in the pattern. So I have that. That's 2/3 of my triangle. I'm going to say finished, and yes, I do want to add another block pattern. You may or may not have this pop up. If you don't, if you do, you can just say yes and add the pattern. If you don't, it would be like you had a no. You're going to say add pattern, block pattern, use current block, and this time I want the line. Select that and continue. I'm going to go back to, well, it doesn't really matter on this. I'm going to move it, and I'm going to drag it down here so it snaps in. I'm going to zoom out so I can see. And I could have adjusted it to 0, but I was still going to have to stretch, so I'm just skipping a step. I'm going to click on stretch, and I want my anchor point. So that's the point I don't want to move, and that's the one that I already clicked to attach to the angle. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on the other end, this line, and drag it to snap in to the other end of my angle. I'm going to say finished. No, I don't. I'm going to modify this pattern just so you can see it better. You don't have to do that. I'm going to move it, and I'm going to move it out of the block. Zoom in. And there, and the zoom back off. I'm going to say finish. So I need to combine this. And I'm going to just click on my angle and continue. Now I noticed when I was doing this that I had both of my start points down here. You're not seeing that. But if I click on this one, start end. Did you see there's, okay, I've got a start and an end. I do not have any start point down here, and that's because this line also has a start and end. I want start and end points on each point. So that's how I knew I had to click swap start and end point. So now I have a start here and an end here and a start here and an end here. And I'm going to say continue. And let me just undo that and show you what happens if I didn't. Select that. So the start and end points would have been there. I'm going to say continue. Because it wasn't a continuous line, this is my clue that something's not right. If it pops up and asks me, do I want to continue a stitching line? Do I want to stop to cut threads? I'm going to click stop to cut threads, and then I'm going to say undo. And now I'm going to click on this one again, swap start and end, continue, and finished. So now I have a closed 90-degree triangle. Now, usually if I'm, well, no, sometimes in blocks it'll be tipped. You're going to need to decide what you want to be the original shape for that. I'm going to modify this pattern, continue. I'm going to rotate it so that it's sitting that way. You don't have to. Let's just finish. So now I can save it as a pattern. I can save it as a block because this is a shape that you see a lot of times as a block. And finished. I'm still on the same screen where I was when I finished the last triangle rather than going out and starting over again. So I'm going to zoom out. So my block is still up there. I don't have to start a new screen every time I'm doing a pattern. I can build a whole bunch of them on one screen. I'm going to say add pattern. Add pattern, block pattern, use the current block. I want my line again. This time I'm going to just show you a 60-degree triangle. I'm going to show you 2 more triangles, and then it's up to you just to play with degrees. I'm going to choose my line, continue, rotation, and set it at 0. And then I'm going to move it just so that we don't have the block in the way. Finished. No, I don't. I'm going to copy my pattern, this one, continue, and I want to rotate it. So I'm going to do, the only perfect triangle is a 60-degree triangle where it's the same angle on all 3 sides, and that is a shape that's used in quilts. And 60 is not in my degree button, so I need to go over to my keypad and type in 60, say enter, and I'm going to move it. And notice I saw right there that I have my start points in the same spot. So while this is still selected, I'm just going to click start and end so it swaps them and I don't have to worry about it later. Zoom out. Finished. And then I'm going to copy the one that I just put in and continue. And then if I click flip X, so if you didn't see that, it's still selected. I'm going to click flip X. So it flips it on the horizontal axis. I'm going to move. So if I click on the start button again and drag it so that it pops into that one. And again, I know that I have 2 start and ends, so rather than worrying about it later, I can just click start and end and get it fixed now. And finished, and I'm ready to combine this. I tend to like to have it sewed clockwise. Sometimes machines like that better, not always. And finished. So there's my 60-degree triangle. So again, you can save it as a block, you can save it as a pattern, and I've already shown you how to do that. So let's do one more. Let's say I wanted I don't know, a 30-degree triangle. It's going to be the same process. Add pattern, block pattern, use the current block. I need the line again. Continue. I'm going to pan down so I can see that. Whoops, not. I want to set the rotation at 0, just because that gives me a nice starting point. I'm going to move it so that we're off of the block and you can see it better. Okay, I'm going to shrink this down. Nah, I'm not. I'll do it later. I'm going to say finished. No, I don't. I'm going to copy the pattern. This one, continue. And I want to rotate it. What are my options? So I do have a 30-degree. I can set it whatever I want. Let's just make this a random one, so it's not even all the same. Let's say it's 25. Enter. I'm going to move it. Okay, I know that the start and end points were in the same spot there, so if I realize it now, I can fix it. I'm going to swap it. Finished. I'm going to copy this pattern again. This one, let's just say that I'm happy with that. I'm going to drag one end so that it clicks, and just because I'm thinking ahead, I'm dragging my start to my end point. Now I'm going to say stretch, click there, and drag, and finished. So there's a triangle. If I didn't want it to be like that, so let's modify this. I can make this any shape I want. Let's say stretch. I want that to be my anchor point. I want this here or here, so it just changed from that 25 degrees. Now I'm kind of doing freeform triangles. I'm going to say select, do this one, continue. I'm going to stretch, so I'm going to anchor the one that's on the base, grab the other one, and drag it over so it snaps. So that's kind of how to do freeform triangles. I've shown you how to do it setting the angle exactly. You could do any shape with straight sides the same way that I was doing here. Just start with one side and just keep adding. So I'm going to say finished, and you can save that if you want to as a pattern or as a block. There was also a request for doing diamonds. Typically in quilting, your diamonds are either 45 degrees or 60 degrees, so I will show you both. I'm out at the main menu. I'm going to design, so quilt, start new. Yes, I do want to replace, and yes, I do want to erase. Don't care. I need a block. I always need a block to be able to put a pattern on the screen. So I'm going to just go with the 10-inch one, continue, finished. I'm going to my geometric catalog, and because that's the last one I was at, that's what's popping up. I need my line. Select that and continue. Like I said, I like to set my rotation to 0 when I start, so that I'm starting with a horizontal line. Zoom out. Come on, zoom out. Okay, and I'm going to move that. Zoom in so you can see well. And I'm finished. No, I do not want to add another one, and you may not have that pop up. I don't on my tablet. I'm using the stick for this video. I'm going to copy the pattern, and I'm going to make it, I want to copy that one and continue. Okay, so if I'm doing a 45-degree diamond, then my rotation is going to be 45 degrees. I'm going to move that so that it pops in there. Now I did notice again that I have start and end points in the same place. I'm going to leave them this time so I can show you as I'm combining it how to fix it. I have mentioned it already. Okay, I could just copy this whole thing and flip it, but I'm just going to do it one at a time. Copy, continue, rotation. I'm going to do 45. Whoops, undo. I didn't copy it. Copy pattern, I want that one. Continue, rotation, 45, move. Now, if you've noticed on diamonds, they're really parallelograms. They are the same length on the sides. Finished. Boy, that doesn't look like the same length, though, does it? We'll see in a minute. Copy this one. Continue. Rotation is 45 still. I want to rotate. I have to click it twice and move. Yep, it is. Okay, so there is my 45-degree diamond. I'm going to say finished, and now I need to combine my pattern. So I'm going to start with this one, continue, here, and see I got the jump stitch, so I know that it's not right. I'm going to say swap, start and end, and it's not going to work because what I can now see, I see this pink line going across here, so it's jumping, so my end point was over here. So I'm going to say undo. I'm going to choose this one again, but I want my start point to be over on the left, so I'm going to swap start and end, continue. Then I'm going to select the next one. I do not have any jump stitches, so there's a start point here. I'm going to say continue. Then the next one, continue. The next one, and if I already know that it's wrong, but if I say continue, I get the screen that asks how I want to combine the pattern. That's when I know that it's not right. I usually just say stop to cut threads, and then I say undo so that I can get to the undo button. So I'm going to go back and select this one. I'm going to swap my start and end, and now I have my start and end points here, and say continue and finished. And there's my 45-degree diamond. So you can save it as a pattern, or you can save it as a block, or both. Let's do our 60-degree one now. So I'm going to say add pattern, block pattern, use the current block. I only have one block on my screen. Line, so I'm clicking on the L to get there quickly, selecting the line, continue. Let's pan so you can actually see it. Turn the zoom back off. Rotation, I'm going to set it at 0 for my start. Let's just move this out of here. So okay, finished. No, I don't. Copy pattern, this one, continue, rotation. So I'm doing a 60-degree diamond now. There is no 60 degrees on my degree button. So I'm going to go here, say 60, and enter. And I'm going to move it. Now I'm making a diamond, so this side, so the left side and the right side are going to be the same angle. I'm going to just say move this over to here, pan, finished. So I can actually just copy this one, continue, and move it over here. Now I have a start point here, and I'm going to be connecting it to a start point. So I'm going to just go ahead and switch that right now while I'm thinking about it. And finished. And then this bottom line is going to be exactly the same as the top one, so I can copy this one, continue, drag it up, and again I have 2 end points and 2 start points, so I'm going to hit the start and end, and it swaps them. Finished. And now I'm ready to combine. I'm going to start here, continue, take the right side, continue, the bottom, continue, and the left side, continue, finished, and there's my 60-degree diamond ready to be saved. So this time I'm going to show you how to make an apple core block or pattern. So design, so quilt, start new, yes, erase, continue. I need a block pattern, or not a block pattern. I need a block always to be able to put any patterns on the screen. Just use the 10. Finished. Now the first time I did the apple core, I sat down with a circle and figured it all out, but I've got it much easier for you now. So I'm going to go to the geometric catalog and go to the arc. And by testing, I determined, or maybe you can tell just by looking at it, the arc is actually a quarter of a circle. So I'm going to say continue. I'm going to rotate it. Let's see where 0 takes it. No help. So I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. Zoom out. And I'm going to move it off of the block. There we go. Finished. And no, I don't want to add another block pattern, and again that may not pop up for you. I'm going to copy that pattern, continue, going to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm going to click on rotation and go up till I get the 90 degree. And if I connect that, then I'm just making half a circle. I'm going to flip X so that I'm flipping it on the horizontal plane. I'm going to move it. So I'm going to click on one of the endpoints and snap it into the endpoint on my first arc. Finished. And I'm going to copy patterns, and I can just copy both of them at once. Continue. Rotation, or I can use the flip X and the Y. I just rotate twice, move, snap together. Just remember the snapping together. As long as you're clicking on that endpoint, it will snap into another one. And finished. And now I just need to combine. I'm going to start at the top, continue, and then I'm going to go to the, I'm going clockwise around. Continue and continue and finished. So then I have my apple core. You can save it as a block or a pattern, but I want to show you that it does tessellate. So I'm going to copy the pattern, continue, just rotate it 90 degrees and move it. I can actually update this. Let's update, move. Well, let's go from the other side because I've got my snap points in there, so I can just snap that in there. Finished. I copy this and this. And anyway, you can see that it will tessellate across the screen. Let's make a wedge for a Dresden plate. So let's assume the Dresden plate has 24 wedges in it. If we take 360 and divide it by 24, that means we have 15-degree wedges. So if you do the math, you can do some things ahead of time. If you don't do the math, you can still get there. I'm going to say add pattern, block pattern, use current block. I still had my 10-inch block up there. I just need the line again. And continue. And I'm just going to use some different tools in here just so you see them being used. I'm going to change my rotation to 7.5 degrees, and I'm doing that because that's half of my 15-degree wedge. And if I put my 7.5 in there, then that means the center of that wedge right now is going to be on my horizontal axis. I'm going to say finished. And no, I don't want to add another block pattern, but I do want to add another pattern. I'm going to add a fan pattern. I'm going to select that line and say continue. Now, if I hadn't done the math, I would have this set up for 24 repeats, and you could either do it at manual with 15 degrees, but you would have had to have done the math then, or you could say 24 repeats and a full circle, and this is what you would get. Oops, zoom out, not in. Okay, so if I did a full circle, then after I made it to get just one wedge, I would need to delete 22 of these lines. So I would want close pattern, no, alternate is off, transition, I would set to none, which I'm going to do anyway. And if I said finished, then I would get that on my screen and I would have 24 individual lines, and I would just go delete 22 of them. But rather than having to delete all of those, I'm going to switch my repeats to 2. And because it says full circle down here, it automatically goes to 180 degrees. So I'm going to go down to my sweep and click till it says manual. And because I did the math, I know I want my wedge to be 15 degrees. So there we go, and I'm going to say finished. Okay, just because I would rather have this going up and down, I did add edit pattern, modify pattern. I'm going to select both because since I didn't have any transition, it's still 2 lines. I'm going to say continue. I'm going to say rotation, and I can click my degree button until I get to the 90 if it's not already there, and rotate. So now the center of this wedge is on my vertical axis. I'm going to say finished, and now I want to combine these. I'm going to go this one, but I want it to start up here, so I'm going to say swap start and end points, continue, then I'm going to do this one and continue and finished. And now I want to close this up, but I'm going to assume that my Dresden plate has a gently curved top. So I'm going to say add pattern, block pattern, use current block, and I want the arc. I mean, you could use the half circle too. That would be much curvier Dresden plates. You could do a straight line across. You could do the angle there. So I'm going to move by grabbing that and snapping it into place. Then I'm going to pan so that I can actually see. Turn the zoom back off, or click on a button down here will turn it off. I'm going to click stretch. I'm going to put my anchor point on that arc, on the one that's already connected to my wedge. And then I'm going to grab the other end and snap it into place. Say finished. No, I don't want to add another pattern. I'm going to combine my patterns. So start here, continue, and go to here, and continue, and finished. Modify the pattern. Whoops. Continue and move. So there's one wedge out of a Dresden plate. Now, because of what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my start and end point. Let me just zoom in so you can see what's happening here. Whoops, not out, in. If I click the start and end, you see the arrow that comes up? It's telling me that it's now going to stitch this way. If I wanted to leave my start and end point where it was, but I wanted it to stitch the other way, just touch it again and my arrow moves. Because this is a closed shape, I can move that start and end point to anywhere that I want it. And I want it down on the point for what I'm going to do next. And I'm going to drag it down here. And sometimes it looks like it's there, but I want to make sure it's really, really, really on that point. So see, it looked like it was, but it's actually up here a ways. So I'm going to drag it down until it really is sitting right on that point. I'm going to say finished. So at this point, you can save it as a pattern, you could save it as a block, but I just want to show you something else that we can do with it. Say zoom, full for the moment, finished, add pattern. Add pattern, I'm going to do the fan pattern again. I'm going to select that wedge, continue, and I'm going to go full circle, and you'll see where it says right now that 2, so all I'm getting, let me zoom out, with the full circle is they're opposite each other, so you could play with this. What if we wanted 4 repeats? Or 3, so there we get a propeller if you want. But I know that I had 24 repeats in my Dresden plate, so let's go ahead and put that in there. So there's my lovely Dresden plate. Now, I found this out kind of by accident. I'm going to zoom in as close as you can get there because you can move that center point. See, I can drag it and start doing all kinds of funky things. And if it's not exactly right, you'll have lines running next to each other instead of right on top of each other. So make sure that that center snaps in to that start and end point, and then say finished. Now you have a pattern that you could stitch out, although it would be very heavy in the center. Most Dresden plates have a circle in the middle, so I'm going to show you how you could do this. But I have not test stitched it out, so you might want to check it before you do on a quilt. Finished, I'm going to say add edit block, add block, no sew zone. I'm going to select that Dresden plate and say continue. I'm going to load a block from the catalog, from my geometric catalog, and I want the circle and continue. Now I do want to make sure that I drag this circle into the center of the Dresden plate. So I have my little square here and I have it in the middle of my square. I'm going to snap it into place. I'm going to zoom out. You could size that circle to what size was actually in a Dresden plate. I'm going to just, I mean, you can scale it up to you. I'm going to say good there, and I'm going to say finished. Yes, I'm fine with it taking that much. And I'm going to transition with continuous, so I'm going to say accept. And yes, I do. And finished. Okay, this time, before when I did this, it actually had stitching in the center. This time it doesn't, so it just depends on how well I have this stacked up. That's okay. I'm going to move this back into the center, as this is even better than what I got before, but I'm going to zoom in, and my start and end point is there on the circle. Just so that I can have a finished circle in here, I'm going to say finished, and then I'm going to say add edit block, block to pattern. I'm going to choose that circle and say continue. Zoom out, and I want to modify, not the block, sorry, I need to get out of the block, say finished, add edit pattern, modify pattern. I want to modify the circle, continue, and I'm going to drag the start, whoops, I don't want to move it, sorry. I could have said undo too. I'm going to click start and end, and I'm going to drag that start and end up to where it was on the Dresden plate. So I'm going to zoom in and drag it to right there. Let's select the Dresden plate. Yep, that is where it was. Say continue. I'm going to zoom out. And now I'm going to combine the pattern. So I'm going to stitch the circle first, continue, then the Dresden plate, and continue, and finished. Now just so we can see how it would stitch out, let's say finished, sew quilt, click on the Dresden plate, continue. I'm going to say preview. I'm going to zoom out, although it'll probably, once it starts stitching, zoom right back in again. And say start. So it stitched my circle first, and then it's going to stitch the wedges, and each line on the wedges is going to get stitched twice. So when we come back to the very beginning, it might not line up perfectly, but that's why I said you should check it out. But this gives you a pattern that you could actually stitch out if you had Dresden plates on your quilt and then wanted quilting that was also Dresden plates and some open space. That would work. I'm not going to stitch the whole thing. I'm going to say go back. No, I don't want to save the needle position, and I'm going to go back. Now, I believe because this is a closed shape now, we can also make it into a block. So let me just save this first. Save a pattern. I'm going to go this one. I'm going to call it a Dresden plate. And enter, and I have a catalog with my name on it that I'm going to dump it into. Now, add edit block, add block, standard block. That is not what I wanted to do. Go back out. All right, we want to go pattern to block. So let me go back to the beginning there. Add edit block, pattern to block. I'm going to select the Dresden plate and say continue. And now I have a plate that I could actually test designs on. I'm going to say finished, and now I can save that block. Save a block, this one, continue, clear. All right, I'm using my keyboard since I have it connected. And enter. And then I'm just going to put it into my blocks and finished. Okay, so that's the Dresden plate. I just want to show you a couple more really simple blocks and then how you might use them. I don't want to be on block. Where I want to be is on Design Sew Quilt. We already have a block. If you don't, you'll need to add one. I'm going to say add edit pattern, add pattern, block pattern, use the current block, and I'm going to go all the way up to the top to the computer art patterns. I'm going to go into the fancy star, but I'm not really looking for a fancy star, and I'm going to say continue. So I'm going to change my twist to 0. Enter. So now I can start playing. Let's say I wanted a 5-pointed star. There's my 5-pointed star. I can make these any amount I want. Let's try just a 16-pointed one. I can change my depth. So it's at 50% right now. If I go to 25%, it appears to be measuring the depth from the center. So I can get this, I can say finished and save that. And then I could say finished. Do I want to add another block pattern? No. Well, actually, yes, I do. I'm going to do it right on top of it, which is fine. I'm going to use my fancy star again. I'm going to do my twist at 0, and I'm doing the 0 because I'm making it as a block, so I want it open in the middle, and I haven't saved it as a block yet. I'm going to again do the 16 just so you can see the difference, and I'm going to make my, whoops, I don't want my depth 16, I want my points to be 16. I'm going to do depth of 75%. So now I get more of a space where I could fill it in. And I'm going, you can play with that if you want to. Let's go even, we go less, it makes deeper valleys. If we do more on the depth, it makes shallower valleys. And I'm going to say finished. Actually, that's kind of cool too. I mean, it could be a pattern where I sewed it. Backed. Let's copy this so I can do both. Finished. No. Copy patterns. This one and this one. Continue. Zoom out. I'm going off script now, and I'm going to move it. Okay. So if I wanted that as a pattern, it looks like my start and end points are already in the same place, which is cool. I just want to, it's right there on that one. Let's select that one. Yep, it's right there on that one. So all I would have to do if I wanted that as a pattern is combine the patterns. Which do we want to sew out first? I think in this case, I'll try going on the outside first, continue. And this one, continue and finished. And I have a new pattern. It'll sew out in one go. Okay, what I originally intended to do here though was make blocks out of these. So I'm going to modify pattern. It doesn't really matter. I could do it from right here. But just so it's easier to see, I'm going to move that off, finished. And then I'm going to say finished, save a pattern from the quilt, save a pattern of the quilt, save a block from the quilt. Whoops, they're not blocks yet. Back up. Back up, add edit block. My brain gets ahead of where my hand is. Pattern to block, I want this one and that one both, and continue. Modify block, so now I do know they're blocks. I'm going to go back, finish, now I can save it. Save a block from the quilt, this one, continue. Just make it starburst, burst 1, enter, and I'll just put it in my select. And I can do the same thing with the other one, but I don't want to do that right now. So I'm going to, nope, block, modify block. I'm going to move this one out of the way and just show you how you might use this. Okay, finished. Finished. Add pattern. Add pattern, pantograph pattern. I'm going to select my square, continue, and then find something that's simple. Let's see. Patterns by Helen. Okay, everybody got those, so let me get that. How about the Celtic 3B to B? Continue and do that again. Continue. Let's make it, let's just say 1 inch for fun, and offset it 50%. Okay, 25%. 50 doesn't do anything because it's a pair. All right, and finished, and I'm going to do continuous except yes. Okay. So now I'm going to add a clipping block. Edit block, add block, clipping block, and I'm going to just select all of those. I could have gone in and combined them all as a single pattern. Continue. I'm going to load a block from the library. I'm going to go to this one that we just made. Continue. And I'm going to move it around on there. Remember, you can change the size. I can scale it down. When I'm happy with it, I'm going to say finished, say continue, and you'd want to play with this, but I'm going to just say accept for continuous stitching. So what you can do with these funky shaped blocks is you can fill them in with something else. So I'm going to stop for there because I think I'm pretty close to an hour. I could keep going all day, but I have other things I need to do. So play around.